Today, I'm going to show you how we can use Gadget and Shopify's customer account UI extensions to build a delightful experience for shoppers that allows them to report problems with orders on the order status page. Let's get started. Hey y'all, I'm Riley, developer advocate here at Gadget. I just want to give you a quick note before we get started building our customer account extension. Some of the functionality in Gadget that I show today is in beta. So if you're interested in building customer account extensions, hop in our developer Discord, let us know, and we can give you access. Let's get going. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started. I will just go to gadget.new. Brings me to my app type selection screen because I'm already signed into Gadget. I will select my Shopify app type, click next, and enter a shop domain. I'm just going to go ahead and call my app Customer Order Problem Reporter. Kind of rhymes. Big fan. So this creates my new Gadget app for me. This gives me my hosted Postgres database, serverless Node.js backend, and React frontend that is powered by Vite. My first step is connecting to Shopify. I'm going to go ahead and click this Connect to Shopify button here. Other way to get to the connection screen is Settings, Plugins, Shopify. I'm going to connect through the partner's dashboard because I do want to use these customer account extensions. App extensions are only enabled when you're building through the partner's dashboard, so I'm going to go with that route. I also need an embedded front end for my app. So I'm going to go over my partner's dashboard. I'm already on the apps page, so I'll just create a new app, create one manually. I will call this, once again, Customer Order Problem Report. Oh, not enough letters. Reports. And press Create. Fantastic. So this is my new partners app. I'm just going to copy my client ID and secret back to Gadget. And press Connect. And on this page, I select what Shopify API scopes and data models I want to include in my app. So for this app, I need access to orders and customer data. So I'm going to go ahead and just read customers. I'm going to select the Shopify customer data model. And I am going to read orders with the Shopify order data model. That's all I need for this app. Off to the right, I do get this little setup summary. Just as a reminder, your Shopify connection settings here can be changed at a later time. So if you ever want to add more data models, remove data models, add additional scopes, you can edit this connection later. This setup summary does show me what I have currently selected. So I am going to be subscribing to some Shopify webhooks for customers and 3 more, which I suspect are my order webhooks, create, update, delete, as well as the default shop update and app uninstalled webhooks. I'm going to be getting the read customers and orders scopes, and I'm going to be syncing data for Shopify Shop, GDPR request, which are default models we include every time you connect to Shopify, as well as my selected customer and order models. So I'm happy with all this. I'll go ahead and press confirm. Fantastic. I'm going to go ahead and copy my app URL and redirection URL back to my partners app. You'll notice we also have this essential step. I need to fill out a protected customer data access form in the partner's dashboard because I have selected these customer and order models. So I'm going to go ahead and copy my app URLs first, and then I'll fill out my protected customer data access form. So I'm just clicking on the app setup tab here in the partner's dashboard. That's my app URL. Now my redirection URL. Save those changes. And now I'm going to do this essential step for the protected customer data access form, which is under the API access tab. And I will go ahead right here, protected customer data access. I'm going to request access. I'm going to just fill out part 1 of this form, protected customer data. I will select app functionality and press save. This other section below is for individual fields, for example, on the customer model. I am going to go ahead and just select the email field individually, just so I can identify the data more easily in my Gadget database. I will once again select app functionality and press save. From this, you will notice when I sync my customer data, Name, phone, and address information will not be included because I haven't filled out these forms individually. So that's all I need to do for protected customer data access. I'm going to go back to my overview page. And I'm ready to install my app on a store. So I will select one of my development stores. I'll go test with sample data. And I will go ahead and install this app. Fantastic. My app is now installed on my store. I didn't have to write a line of OAuth code. Gadget handled all of it for me. That is great. I'm going to do something to show that our webhooks are indeed working. I'm actually going to go ahead and make an order on my store right away. And this should show that we do get our customer data as well as order data synced to our Gadget database. So I'm going to go to my online store and I will just check out with one of these snowboards. Let's go the hydrogen snowboard. Why not? I'm just going to go buy it now. I'm going to go ahead and enter my email here, riley@gadget.dev. I'll fill out some information. I will use the Gadget address. Save it for next time just so I don't fill it out again. And I will continue through these steps. I'm just using Shopify's bogus payment gateway. So this will just create a test charge and I will click pay now and this will actually create the order. And I need this order later in my app because I'm going to actually report a problem with it. So that's kind of why I'm doing it. I'm also going to show off how it creates data in Gadget. So that's great. I've gone ahead and created my order. If I go back to my admin, look at orders, I can see I have this unfulfilled order that I just created. If I go back to Gadget, we see we did successfully connect to Shopify, which is fantastic. I can close this modal. I'm going to just pop open my Shopify order data model that has been added to my Gadget app. And if I go to data, I see that this is my order that I just created. It's got the price of $600. It's got me, my email. So that is fantastic. If I check customer, I have also been added as a customer. So that is great. If I do want to sync all of my historical order data and customer data, I can go settings, plugins, Shopify, shop installs, and click on this sync button. And this will sync all of our historical customer and order data. Note that you do need special permission from Shopify to sync order data that is older than 60 days. There's a unique access scope and you need to go through and check a box in the partner's dashboard. So I'm just going to make a note of that. I don't really need to sync now, but I will press this sync just to show that it's working. And we should get a bit more information in our data table. So if I just go to customer, I now have additional customers that are available. And these are just test customers that Shopify populates when we create a new development store with test data. So that's great. As I mentioned before, we have added these data models. So these data models are like tables in a database. Gadget's handling all of the migrations for me. If I click on model, we have these fields, and all of these fields are simply the resources available in these Shopify resources. So that is fantastic. It matches with Shopify's REST API, so I am good. This data will be synced to my app, my database automatically. Next thing I want to do is add a custom data model. I want to be able to present buyers with different options that they can report as a problem. I don't want to make it a free form. They need to select one of my pre-populated options. So I'm going to go ahead, create a new custom data model and call it issue. Gadget handles all of the database changes under the hood. So I now have this issue data model or table, and I can add some custom fields, which are like columns, to it. So I'm going to go ahead. Issues have descriptions. It's going to be a string field. It will be a required field, so you can't create a new issue without a description. I'll also go ahead and go is B2B. I'm going to make this a Boolean field. And that's just because for B2B customers, I want a separate subset of issues that I can mark as B2B only for my B2B customers. So it's just that extra B2B layer that is baked right into Shopify's customer account extensions. Finally, I do want to relate these issues to Shopify order. So I am going to go ahead and call this orders, and I will make this a issue has many Shopify order. And this creates the inverse of the relationship. So now if I go to Shopify order, I see that issue exists on my order model. Okay, let's move on. Now I can add a bit of custom backend code. So I want a way to be able to add issues to my orders. This is what we're going to call from our customer account extension. So when a customer or a buyer selects a issue with one of our orders, we want to go ahead and relate the issue to our actual order in our database. What I'm going to do is add a new action, and I will call this add issue. And I'll take this moment to just talk about actions a little bit. So when I added my Shopify data models or my custom issue data model, we also generated a CRUD API automatically. So by default, you got a create, update, delete action available here, as well as a read API that is detailed in the API docs. So what these actions do is create creates, update updates. Each action has a code file, so you are in control of them. You can edit and change them how you want. These actions have two main functions. There's run, which is great for database level operations, and on success, which is great for longer running or side effects. I'm adding add issue because this will be a custom action. So instead of action type update, it's going to be custom. And this just allows me to run a custom operation on an individual order. This will just tie an issue that the buyer has selected with an individual order. So what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to copy and paste some code. So that is fantastic. So I've pasted code in. My run effect here hasn't changed. All that my run function is doing is saving the record to my database. It is preventing cross-shop data access. So if you are building a public app, data tenancy is handled for Shopify models automatically. So that's great. Merchants or customers won't be able to see each other's data. My onSuccess function has changed a bit. So I'm actually going to jump down to the bottom here. I have defined a custom parameter for this custom action called issue ID. And this is how I'm going to pass in the issue that the buyer customer selects in the extension. I'm just grabbing that issue ID from my parameters object. So we have this high context parameter provided for both run and onSuccess functions that gives you access to everything you need within the context of this action. Parameters is my custom parameter, for example. Record will be the current Shopify order. Logger gives us access to the logger, as you may have guessed. There's this logs tool up in the top left. We'll take a peek at that a little later. There's this API object, which allows me to interact with my Gadget apps API. So you can see here, I am calling api.internal.shopifyorder.update, and I am adding the passed in issue ID to the current record, which is my current Shopify order. I am using this internal ID because by default, Shopify actions don't have API endpoints to update. So if I go take a look at the create action for my Shopify order and look at triggers, you'll see this action is only triggered by Shopify webhooks or that data sync. If I go over to add issue, you see that the trigger is an API endpoint. The reason we don't generate API endpoints for Shopify actions by default is because we encourage you to write your data to Shopify and then allow webhooks or the data sync to update the Gadget database. The relationship between Gadget and Shopify is one way. Now I have a bunch of commented out code here. This is just an example of what you can do when an issue is added. So this will actually just update it in the database, write it to the logger. As a follow-up, you might also want to send a message with Twilio or send an email with SendGrid. I'm not going to go through all the steps of setting up the Twilio client right now, But this is some stubbed out code that shows you what you can actually do if you do want to go ahead and send a message or send an email. It's just a matter of, once again, using that API object to find the rest of the details, that is the description of the issue ID that was passed in. And then if you have initialized a Twilio client, once again, Gadget is built on Node, so you can just install the Twilio Node package, set up the client, add your API key using environment variables, and then use this client to send messages. So this is with a targeted phone number. So that's fantastic. That's just a little example. I'm not going to touch on the Twilio or follow-up again. I'm going to focus on the extension stuff. So we've gone ahead and we've added our custom action. Now we need to manage some access control. So if I go to access control, this is where we have all of our roles and permissions. I need to do a couple little things here. First off, I want my merchants to be able to create and delete, manage their issues. So I'm going to give the Shopify app users role read, create, and delete access to my issue data model. And this will just allow us to build an embedded admin UI where merchants can manage the issues that are available to customers. I'm also going to go ahead and add a new role. I'm going to call this Shopify customers. And I am going to go ahead and give customers access to issues. They need to be able to read issues. I'm also going to give them access to my add issue and read of my Shopify order data model. And that's because we need customers to be able to call add issue, and we want to check if an issue has already been filed for a particular order. I'm going to go ahead and also add a jelly file. So this jelly file just enforces tenancy for us. So I'm going to go ahead and add this and then explain it. I'll call this order issue.jelly, and I'm actually going to use the same jelly snippet for both my read and add issue actions. I'm going to open this up. I will just do a very quick paste here. All this is doing is the customer ID on my Shopify order has to match the Shopify customer ID coming in on my session. So when I make a request from my customer account extension, that will add the Shopify customer ID to my session model. And I need to be able to verify that the customer ID of my order is the same as the one on my session. This is just making sure that customers can't report issues for other customers' orders. It's just a way to enforce secure requests from the extension. Because I'm using the Shopify customer ID here, I can actually go into my Shopify session model or my just session model, and I will add a new Shopify customer ID field. That's important. We can just leave it as string. That's all we need to do to actually capture that customer ID coming in as part of the request from the extension. Now, this is just a beta feature. This will be added to the session by default in the future, but for now, this is what we need to do. Same thing with the jelly permissions. All of that will be set up in the future. That role will be added by default. So this is just really a temporary step. Okay, so that is fantastic. I believe that is all of the access control work we need to do. So let's now pivot to our admin front end. So we need a front end that allows merchants to be able to manage these issues. I am just gonna, once again, copy and paste. We have a front end folder here in Gadget. We set up a couple things for you. So there is this API client that will be unique to your app, customer order, problem reporter. And we are importing this into a couple sample pages. So for example, if I look at shop page JSX and I go back to my admin app here, I can see that this page is powered by shop page JSX. So this is actually my front end React app right here. So I'm going to go ahead and just paste some code over shop page JSX. You'll notice the page updated automatically. We do have HMR baked into it. If you're familiar with some of our other tutorials, you also may be thinking, Riley, this looks very similar to the product tagger. And to that I say, How dare you? I will walk through this code now. This is just going to give us a way to add and manage issues. So we can go ahead and, those are some what is Apple and business. Interesting autocomplete options when I was testing. We can go ahead and add some possible issues like box was damaged. Add that. That adds it to our list of existing issues. And if I go ahead and check my Gadget database, we see that box was damaged, has been added. It's not B2B. I can now go ahead and if I add another issue, let's say shipped to wrong facility. That sounds a lot more B2B, so I'll check that box and add an issue. Shipped to wrong facility has been added. You'll notice we add this little business icon because it's B2B. One other thing, I noticed that our is B2B is null. So if I refresh this, we see is B2B true. If we always want that is B2B to be either true or false, I can go into is B2B and set a default value to false. So all of our records will automatically have a value instead of it being null. So if I go ahead and try creating another non-B2B issue, let's see what Shopify does here in their example. I'm just going to peek at their reported problems. Missing items, that is a good one. So let's go missing items. It's not B2B specific, so I can add this issue. Missing items appears, and if I go check my data, now it is set as false. So that's fantastic. I'm going to go ahead and just remove box was damaged because it has this null value. So now we have true and false. So that is great. A little on-the-fly fix for our data model. I'm going to walk through Shop Page JSX now. I did post a bunch of code. I showed you how the UI works. There are a couple of things to point out here. So this is a React front end, so we can use state hooks or any React hooks that we desire. We also provide you with some useful React hooks for interacting with your Gadget apps API in the Gadget Inc. React package. You see, we're using find many. This is going to be find many that allows us to read from our data models. There's use action, which allows us to call an individual action. We're using this to actually delete tags. I should have actually shown that in our UI. From box was damaged, I deleted it in the database. Maybe I'll give another quick demo of deletion of issues. Box was damaged. If I add this issue, I can also delete the issue. So that's what use action is being used for, to handle that delete. And then we have this use action form as well as a controller component. And use action form is really handy whenever you have any sort of front end form because it's managing all your state for me. So I don't need to go ahead and manage the state of my input field and my checkbox using use state hooks. Use action form is going to handle that for me. It just wraps the excellent React hook form library. We do have component or Polaris set up by default. So you can see I am importing a bunch of components from Shopify Polaris and a title bar from Shopify's AppBridge React package. I'm importing that API client that was set up, and I am importing that business icon, organization icon from the Shopify Polaris icons library, which is also installed in your app by default. Getting into the actual code, I do have a little error banner. I'm not going to poke at that right now, but it does exist if you want to look at this yourself. I am using a use state hook just to manage the deleted issue ID. This is just to disable the tag when we click that X. It's really just a nice little user experience piece. This is where I'm using my use find many hook. I'm passing an api.issue. So this is calling api.issue.useFindMany under the hood. And we get data, fetching, and error. So data will be my returned issues, which is great. That's what's being displayed in that list at the bottom in those tags. We have a fetching Boolean that I can use to display a loading state and an error that I am assuming I am piping into this error banner somewhere down below. I'm going to skip over our use action form and talk about this use action for deletion. So you can see I am using this use action hook, passing in api.issue.delete. This is giving me, I also have data, fetching, an error here. I am using error to create, once again, an error banner. But I also get this delete issue function. And it's when I call this delete issue function that we actually delete whatever is passed in. So if I go ahead and find where I'm calling this, see, I am passing the error into an error banner. So right here in our tag component, there is an onRemove property as part of the Polaris library. I'm going ahead and calling this function that calls my await delete issue and passes in the ID of the current issue. And then we're calling the set deleted issue, which is just my use state hook action to update that state. So I'm actually calling this function here that is initialized as part of my use action hook. And that's what's actually deleting that issue from my database. Finally, we do have this use action form hook, and I'm passing this in with api.issue.create. Use action form gives me a bunch of things. There is a submit function that I use to actually submit my form. You see down here on the Polaris form component, in on submit, the first thing I'm doing is awaiting submit. I get this control component, and I need this to use this controller. And this is what I am using to manage my Polaris components. So you can see, because Polaris is a managed component library, I need this controller and this control in order to actually manage the description, which is the field on my issue data model. And I am saying for this field on my data model, which is defined up here with api.issue. So for the description field, I am rendering this component, which is my text field. And you'll notice something I'm doing way down here at the bottom. I'm going to move it up for clarity. But I am spreading these field props that come from the field from my controller. So that's handling my onChanged, my value of my form. So all of the actual form state is managed for me. Going back to my use action form, there's a reset function I'm calling just to clear out my input box when I actually submit my form. There is an error I'm using just to display errors. And then there is form state, and I am using form state. There's an is submitting Boolean I'm using to just disable my text field. I am not using it to disable my checkbox, but perhaps I should. We're also showing a loading state for is submitting on our button. So this is just a way I can disable state. There's a lot more different fields on that form state that you can explore and integrate into your form. Getting on to my actual components, this is just Polaris. It's pretty standard. So there's page, layout, a title bar. We are using a form like I mentioned and a form layout. I already kind of walked through the controller of the text field. The text field does have this connected write property. And in there, I am passing in this checkbox and this button. So that just keeps everything in a nice line. I'm using an inline stack. And there is another controller. Remember, this is for the other property on our issue, which is B2B. And I am going ahead and just rendering that checkbox. And once again, we are spreading the field props of this checkbox. Checkbox does have a checked instead of a value. So I'm just setting field props.value or setting check to field props.value instead of just doing a spread. So that's fantastic. That's most of my form, or that is my form. Down below, there's this other section. And this is just this existing issues. So you can see there are some text components. There's some error banners we display. There is a card component we're using to give that nice card background. And then we're mapping over our data. So this was data, remember, that we read from our use find many hook. So that will just grab our issues. And we are using the tag component to just display these tags as a little extra spice. We are checking if the issue is B2B, and we're adding that icon if it exists. And if there are no issues, we do display no issues added. So that's great. That is our admin UI. Let's now move on to our Shopify CLI extension. So I'm going to go ahead. Yarn create Shopify app. I'm going to call this, what did I call my app? Customer order problem reporter. Oh, reports. I want to add my first extension. I don't want the remix template because Gadget handles all that for me. And this will create an extension-only Shopify CLI app. Perfect. I can change directory into that app. And I can go yarn generate extension right away. I'm going to choose my partner's organization, Rally Test Stuff. I don't want to create it as a new app. This is very important. I want to connect to an existing app, and I want to select the one I created before when I connected to Shopify from Gadget. So that's customer order problem reports. Doesn't rhyme, not as good. So here I can select my extension type. I do want my customer account UI. I'm just going to leave my extension with the default name, and I'll select JavaScript React as the language, and this will actually generate this extension in my file. So now I can go ahead and open this up in VS Code or my editor of choice. There we go. This is a standard Shopify CLI app. The interesting stuff is in extensions. There's my customer account UI extension. I have this TOML file. I will want to be updating this. I get a package.json for my extension, and then there is a source folder with my actual extension code. So I'm just going to go ahead and start this. We can take a look at what the default is. Just yarn dev. I do want to select the same store I installed my app on, so that is my test with sample data. And then I am just going to go ahead and copy this link and flip back over to Chrome here. So I can go ahead, copy one of these URLs, paste it in. I'm going to do a little login dance here. This is just emailed to me. There it is, submitting. And this will allow me to enter this customer portal. So this is pretty neat. This is actually one of my extension pages right here. This is a full page extension. I'm not going to go into this right now. Shopify does have a wish list tutorial that you can adapt and go through yourself. If I click on orders, I see all of the orders I have made. So that is pretty neat. That's fantastic. So I can see that my most recent order is right here, this hydrogen snowboard. And that was updated on the 30th, which is today. So that's great. So I'm going to go ahead. This is my actual extension here. I'm going to flip back to my CLI. I'm going to go ahead and stop it. And now I am going to go ahead and start updating my app. So first thing I'm going to do is update my TOML file. I'm going to paste a bunch of code in here. It's actually not that much code. I'm just adding, I'm following Shopify's own tutorial now. So I'm adding this additional menu action modal extension. This will just be the widget, the UI, the card that appears when I want my customer to select an issue. I'm also enabling network access, and that's so I can make requests to my Gadget backend. Now, I do need to install my Gadget API client. So I'm actually going to open up a new tab here. I'm going to change directory into my extensions, customer account UI, and I'm going to go yarn add Gadget inked React and Gadget client. And now I need to enter the name of my Gadget app. So that will be Customer Order Problem Reporter. I knew it rhymed. Customer Order Problem Reporter. So this is a unique client for your Gadget app, which is awesome. And this will give us a way to use an API client to just call our Gadget API. We'll just install it right in our package.json. So now if I go ahead, check out my extension code, look at package.json, I can see that my two Gadget packages are installed. So now I'm going to go ahead and make some updates and code file additions. So we're not going to touch this full page extension. We will use this menu action extension. Before I do any of that, I'm going to add an api.js file. And here is where I am setting up my Gadget Apps API. So I'm going to go ahead, do my installed Gadget client. So that's my customer order problem reporter. I'm initializing and exporting my API client here. In this example, I am also setting a custom auth token with a passed-in Shopify session token. This just allows me to make my secure requests from within this extension. This will be improved eventually. There will be a better way to do this. This is kind of part of our beta feature right now. So I do just need this function for now. I am going to call this from my menu action extension and an additional code file. All this is doing, though, it is appending the session token as a header. That's kind of the TLDR. If I go ahead, go to my menu action extension. So right now, this is just a menu item button. So if I flip back to my portal here, this full page button, I believe, if I go to my English locales, full page menu item button. So yeah, so this button here, full page, is what is actually being powered by the extension. I am just going to go ahead, paste some code in my action extension and walk through it. This code is largely coming from Shopify's tutorial, but slightly modified. So what I am doing is I am using use API hook from their extension. There is a React extension, which is part of this kind of boilerplate setup here, and a button component. Shopify customer account extensions do make use of their own components, but they also make use of the Checkout UI component. So if you're familiar with Checkout UI, you'll feel right at home here. From my Gadget API client, I am importing that API as well as that set auth token function. And from my Gadget and React package, I am importing a provider, which I need to use to set up so I can use my hooks, and my use find one hook, which I'm going to use to read the current order. So you can see here in this React extension setup, I am using this provider around the default menu action extension. That just allows me to use my hooks with my API client. If you don't want to use hooks, if you just want to use the imperative API, you can go api.order.findMany. That's fine too. I like to use the hooks. Here in my actual extension, this is Shopify's use API hook. It gives me access to the current order ID as well as the session token. I'm going ahead and setting up the session token with my API client in a use effect hook here. So that once again is just applying that session token as a header when I make requests using my API client. And then I'm using a use state hook just as a show or set show action. So this will just say whether or not we actually want to show that custom button in the UI. I am using my use find one hook here. So I am just grabbing the current order to see if there's already an issue associated with it. If there is, I am disabling the button, changing the copy bit. I don't want people to be able to submit multiple orders for the same, or multiple issues for the same order. I also have a use effect hook here. This is straight out of Shopify's tutorial. This is just checking if any fulfillments exist for the order. If it does, we show the button. So this is it for this extension page. You see here at the bottom, it is just a button. It is disabled if there is an issue with the order, and we're just changing the copy a little bit. So now what I am going to go ahead and do is add a new code file that will be called menu action modal extension.jsx, and I'll paste code in here. And so if I look at my extension toml, I already set this up. I have the target as customer account order action render. So that is fantastic. This will be called by my menu action extension button when it is clicked. So I can just walk through this quickly and then we can actually test it out. It should be done. Similar setup, I am using the provider around my menu action modal extension component. I am using this use API hook. Once again, I'm grabbing the order ID and the session token. I'm also grabbing this authenticated account that lets me check whether or not a customer is B2B on this line here. And we get a close function that will actually close this modal. This use effect is the exact same. Because these extensions are sandbox, I need to be able to set the auth token, that session token, on my API client for both of my extensions, so the code is the exact same. We're using another use effect here just to read the available orders that are in or issues that are in our database. I am using this is B2B customer field to determine whether or not we should fetch our B2B issues, and I'm just using this filter condition. I'm setting this dynamically. And so this is a case where I'm actually not using hook. I'm using the imperative API. I'm going api.issue.findMany, passing in our filter, and I'm just selecting the ID and description of the issue. I'm formatting these so that they are ready for the select component, that is the Shopify checkout UI extension component, and I'm setting the options with my useState hook. So that is all the setup needed. Finally, we have our actual return statement. So I did build an issue form, which is a separate component. This will be the form that a customer or buyer selects to select an issue or fills out to select an issue. So I'm just passing the options, the order ID, and the close function. I am reporting or returning just a default component here, and this is just while things are loading. And you'll notice that the condition is options.length. So if there are no options, this won't actually open up. There is a close button so you can cancel at least. In my issue form, I am once again using useActionForm, this time on my api.shopifyorder.addIssue. That's our custom action. I am setting the order ID to our default order ID, just using split and pop, which will be the last numeric value there. And the issue ID, I am just setting it as the default to the first option available. We're once again using this customer account action component. We have a primary and secondary action. They're both buttons. One is for close. The first primary action is now for submitting the form. We are just calling that submit from our use action form, and close, which is our action or function provided by use API hook provided by the extension. And then below that, we just have a form. This looks very similar to our embedded admin app. There is a controller for the issue ID, and we are passing in control. We are once again spreading field props. This time we're using a select component. We're passing in the options, and we should be good. So let's go ahead and test this out now. I am just going to go ahead, run app dev. I'm going to copy my preview URL here back into Chrome. There we go, paste this. This will take me back to my order page. So you can see that some of my orders now have this report a problem button. This is my latest order, so I can't actually report a problem with it until it's been fulfilled. So if I go ahead, go to my order, and mark as fulfilled, I will not send myself a notification. So that is great. I'm going to try refreshing this just to see if it was indeed fulfilled. It has been. So now if I refresh this page here, I can report a problem for this issue. So if I click here, this loads up my problems. Now I only have one problem in my database, so it's not super interesting. I'm going to go ahead and report missing items. There's only one item, so that's like not ideal perhaps. And now if I go back to my Gadget database, I am on my order page already here. I'm going to go ahead and refresh this. This is my latest order, 1033. So now if I go and find the issue column, now if I find the issue column, issue 3. So that is the ID of the issue selected. If I check here, we see that missing items is 3. If I do want to add some additional issues just to show it off, we can go items, damaged, add that issue. And you see, if I go ahead and refresh, this order now has a report submitted. So if I report a problem for one of my other orders, I see items damaged is also an available option now. So that was an end-to-end build of a customer account extension using Gadget. We went through database setup. We wrote some custom backend code. We did access control settings with a custom role for Shopify customers. We built an embedded admin app, and then we set up this extension. Okay, so that was our end-to-end app build. I will remind you again that this is in beta. So if you have any interest in trying out customer account extensions with Gadget, hop into our developer Discord and let us know. We will give you access to the beta flag. This tutorial, all of this code, including the extension, will be forkable. The link is in the video description, as well as a link to our Discord. If you have any questions, let us know in our Discord. We're always happy to help. Until next time, I hope you keep building more and coding less with Gadget.